On the contrary, over the last few years, we see more and more initiatives, several initiatives every single year for learning Tanakh, studying Tanakh, teaching Tanakh, incorporating technology into the teaching of Tanakh. Tanakh is a staple that could never go stale, but what's changing over time is the study methods, the teaching methods, and we see through the development of all the different methodology, through the involvement of technology, that Tanakh is what always remains the same. It's always there as the base, as the foundation, and what changes is the way it's taught, the way it's looked at. There are always new ways to look at it. I don't think that it's becoming undervalued or devalued. I think that people are constantly looking for new ways to approach Tanakh, to study Tanakh, and to teach Tanakh. How do we keep the Tanakh whole? How do we maintain the sanctity of the Tanakh? I believe we maintain the sanctity of Tanakh by studying it, by continuing to look to it for our values and morals, and continuing to incorporate it in our lives. When we value something, when we really value something, we have it as part of our lives, and we have something as part of our lives. When we believe that the book is incorporated in our lives, it causes us to look at it differently, to love it more, to identify with it more. That identification also causes us to look at it as something sanctified. So I believe that what we're doing here, that our studying the Tanakh, creating access to Tanakh through this website, is actually increasing the way people look at it, is increasing its significance, and at the end of the day maintains its sanctity as well. People look to the Tanakh. Tanakh is a timeless book with values and messages that are timeless, that are relevant at any time, any day and age, and studying Tanakh, looking into it, understanding the messages that God has for us, that He conveys through the Tanakh, is something that's always relevant. And the more you learn, the more the deeper you'll be able to reach those messages.
The Google of Tanakh is Michael Herzog's new fantastic website, hatanakh.com. We come to the home page, we'll see Parshat Shavua with the beautiful Koran fonts that we all know and love from Koran Tanakh. The Haftarah is a click away. Lessons, audio, written shiurim, biblical locations on Google Maps are all available as tools at the side of our Learning the Parsha. Clicks away are commentary, topics, maps, articles, figures mentioned in the Parsha. If we want to come and learn Tanakh on the go or on the screen with the familiar Koran Tanakh, we have multiple tools at hand. The Targumim, Targum Yonatan, Targum Onklus, Mefarshim, commentators. We can choose to see all, or we can choose just one commentator at a time. If I move the cursor over Ibn Ezra's top comments, I'll see that he's talking about Pasuk Aleph, maps of the Parsha. There aren't any in the first parak of Bereshit, but we'll move to the stories of Abraham. Because with this timeline we have at the top of the page, we can easily scroll through the entire Tanakh with the familiar Herzog divisions into stories and see everything within context. Our map features are another exciting and groundbreaking tool. If you want to select a book, Sefer Yehoshua, Perek Yud, we'll see that's a parak, that's a chapter about wars. You need to know geography. You need to be able to have geographical tools to properly understand the parak. We see all the cities mentioned in this parak. If we click on Pnei HaShetach, we'll see the terrain. We'll understand their challenges moving from one place to the other. Moving back to regular mode, we can scroll through the different colored icons. We can see the cities mentioned in the very beginning of Tanakh, and then compare them with the cities mentioned in the time of Abraham.
So it's very, very unique.
It's amazing. It's another wonderful thing from Michela Herzog. We have a list of maps. We have a list of maps by place where you can easily, if you want to look up Avel Hashitim, you'll find which time period it appears in, and Perek and Pasuk in a beautiful chart form. Shiurim, we have a personal space, workspace, if you want to sign in and save files, save maps, build a Dvar Torah, build a lesson, study on your own, study with friends. It brings a whole new dimensions to the study of Tanakh, and we're really excited about it.
The Tanakh in Ben Gurion's time was the book that he based his claim for the land of Israel on. He was not observant, but the Tanakh to him was the book, the contract that we had for this land. And it was the story of our lives in this land. As time went on, the study of Tanakh was more minimalized. First of all, in Haredi yeshivas, it's almost non-existent. And it used to be non-existent anyway. And in the secular public, it became a subject that was annoying, that you had as little as possible during the week, and you didn't even, if you looked at the school books, you discovered that in the textbooks they were not learning the real Tanakh, the original Bible. They were learning a watered-down version. It's sort of like taking Shakespeare, not really the same, of course, and putting it into modern language instead of studying it in the beautiful language that it was, even though it was difficult. Gush Etzion, Har Etzion, where I've been coming for about 8 years every summer. This is my treat, and studying Tanakh. I also come here during the year every Sunday, I might add, for the last 5 years, has taken Tanakh and made it a central subject. And right now they're working on an internet site that's going to make Tanakh available to the regular Israeli public, picking interesting topics and putting them on the internet. What's special here is that, first of all, thousands of people are here with smiles on their faces studying Tanakh, going from class to class. Everybody knows everybody by now. But the second thing is that the Tanakh has the aspect of walking on the stones here. You're walking where Abraham was, where Yitzchak was, where Yaakov was, where the fathers and mothers of the Jewish people were. So that you're not, when you go on a trip with this study group, you're not just walking on a trip, you're actually living history. And you feel like, this is mine. This is why it's mine. And Bennett, the Minister of Education, came to our last class and actually said that. He said, some people think that a Jewish state is so that the Jews will have a place for shelter. But this isn't my shelter. This is my history. This is my home. He said that, and that's the way you feel when you're taking these classes here. In addition, however, Har Etzion has a very special approach to Tanakh, in addition to the places themselves and the geographic aspect and the archaeological aspect, and that is a literary aspect. The Tanakh is read very closely here, the way you would read another literary text, but because it's holy, it's read with awe and with respect. And every word is analyzed to see what we can learn about the story. This morning, I took a class with Professor Uriel Simon on the binding of Isaac, Akedat Yitzchak. I think I must have read that hundreds of times. But it was totally new. What he did was just fantastic. I wrote down every word so I can tell it to my family. And that's why I wish all of you would come and join the Kfar Etzion summer classes.
So you're talking about the Tanakh. So how do we keep him?
How do we keep the value of the Tanakh is a question that I have asked myself many times. I think perhaps the subject matter in the schools has to be changed. Not in religious schools, where Tanakh is a beloved subject, and until it gets to the matriculation exams, of course, but it's a beloved subject, and it's studied in very interesting and creative ways. But for the secular community, which loves Israel and is Zionist, it has to be taught, I think, with trips and studying chapters of the Tanakh as if it's Jewish history. I remember that when I was a new immigrant here, I went on a trip with Rabbi Ariel, and he took us to the Golan, and he read the chapter about King Ahab going out to war, which I had studied in school. I loved Tanakh in America. I actually used to correspond with Nechama Leibovich. I really loved Tanakh. But how could you compare it with being up there in the Golan and him pointing to where the army came from Aram, and where the Jewish army came from and what happened, and reading the verses right there? You felt like it was happening to you. It was your people. I think if they did more of that, I think everybody would love Tanakh. You just can't help it. It's your home. And in fact, when the Ethiopian Aliyah began, I wrote a letter to the education ministry. I ran a youth village with hundreds of Ethiopian students, and Tanakh was so hard for them. It was like a different language. I said, let's just take them out on day trips. Let's take various chapters and show them where they were. They can't help loving this land once they hear that. So that is how I think that the value of Tanakh could be made greater. I would like to add my personal feeling when I came to Israel. I was asked to speak at my son's elementary school, and this is what I said. I said, you know, I always loved Tanakh, the Bible. I used to read it on the subway, going to YU, where I was taking in teachers college. And I used to write, as I said, to Nechama Leibovich. But when I got here and we started driving around, I could not believe it. There were street signs that said Tzorah, Eshtaol, Hebron, the places where Samson was, the places where Abraham was. They were regular street signs. We would stop and get out of the car and just look at the signs. And I couldn't understand why everybody else wasn't stopping to look at them until I realized that that's normalcy. In the days of Abraham, there was probably a sign that said Hebron, and that's how he found the way. And he didn't think it was anything special. This was his home. God had given it to him. And the fact that nobody stops at every street sign that has a name from the Bible means that this is ours, and we're used to it. And that's what we should be.